the Friends Without Benefits podcast. My name is Jason Horton, and if you're here for the first time, welcome to the party of one or two. And if you're back, welcome back. I just seek out and find and already know, or sometimes I don't already know, really cool and interesting people. And it seems like they are having a really good time doing cool and interesting things. And I want to find out what they do, how they do it, and how they got here. Because I don't know, maybe there's something to learn. Maybe there's something you could kind of learn from this, or you can relate to and be like, oh yeah, me too. Also from, I don't know, that city, or I also did this and that, and I don't know. I like relating to people, and when I get connected to people and that I don't know, and I hear that, I'm like, oh wow, that's really cool. Like if you're from New Jersey, oh man, we'll be best friends. I don't care if you hate me. But I'm here with somebody that I don't hate, which works out pretty well. Jennifer Levinson. Oh, did I say that right?
Yeah, you said it right.
Oh, so far so good. That's about the bulk of the research I do. I like to kind of know what I know about you, and then I like to discover the rest. But how we know each other, and I like to start with how we know each other through the internet.
Yeah.
Isn't that the way? I mean, isn't that probably like the majority of the way? Like you either like meet a mate or get a job or like buy a couch. Like everything's like on the internet.
It's crazy. Technology is so advanced now. I've met so many people through Twitter recently.
Oh wow! So you're taking it back to making it back to.
Yeah.
Makes you sound really old though, which you're not.
It does, yeah, since Twitter's sort of going downhill recently.
Yeah, but you're bringing it back up.
Trying to.
I think. I mean, Twitter is just a different, kind of vehicle for things. I've been getting back on Twitter a lot at Jason_Horton. I think you might have liked one of my tweets recently.
Yeah, I retweeted you.
And I saw that and I appreciated it. See, I noticed and I'm very thankful. So lately, Twitter has been a place for me to put out jokes or thoughts. Not so much promotions. I feel like people like. It depends on who you are, but when you're promoting something, it's a little harder to get the engagement than it is if you're just like, look at me, like you went to FYF Fest. So
Right.
that would might do better than you going like, come to my show or like listen to me on the Friends Without Benefits podcast or something like that.
Yeah, it seems like people don't want to be sold anything.
Yeah.
So if you could do it in a subtle way.
Yeah,
they'll
or
pay
you
attention.
give, then take.
Exactly.
Which I think is. But we met. You had a thing called Girls Try.
Yeah, so I was working with this company called VidMe, and they hired me to create some original content. And my platform has mostly been on Snapchat, so they wanted to try out building a Snapchat channel with an organic audience. So we were testing that out for a while, then trying Facebook Live, and somebody recommended we reach out to you and test out a Facebook Live, and it went really well. But then they decided to go in a different direction with the original content, and we've kept in touch ever since.
Yeah, and look at us now.
Look at us now, podcasting.
Podcasting, wow, just going the complete other direction. But I also, we just shot something a week ago.
Yeah, it was a little sketch,
which was super fun.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Hannah. Your friend Hannah and my friend Hannah, I guess, who was also part of the Girls Try thing. She a sketch, and your boyfriend.
Yes.
I was gonna say husband, but I'm just gonna say boyfriend. Your boyfriend directed it and shot it, and came in and just honestly he would just zoned in on everything that was going on so fast and made so many cool suggestions and choices in such a short amount of time. I was like, damn.
Yeah, he killed it. He's super used to shooting short form content in a really quick period of time. He works at BuzzFeed.
Yeah.
So,
you guys, people will probably know you also from BuzzFeed.
Right. People think I also work at BuzzFeed, which is fine with me. I do a lot of collaborations with BuzzFeed. Steve, my boyfriend, works full time at BuzzFeed. So he's used to getting 20 pages to shoot in 2 hours. So he came right in and shot that sketch in less than 2 hours.
He tore it up, and it was like I'm gonna be honest. When people ask me to do things, my thing is to say yes because I like doing stuff. But the problem is, take away like the last like maybe like month or two. For the last year before that, I was became like a little bit reclusive, a little burnt out. I mean, the thing where it was just like I just was did not want. I don't know. There was just something where I was just like didn't want to do things, and then I became like I was just like but I was almost a little like paranoid about like doing things. I'm like, oh no, I don't can't do this anymore. And that was when Hannah asked a while ago, can you do this? I was like, yeah. And then time had passed, and I remember being there and thinking like, my instinct was, panic. I was like, I should have said no. It's hot. It's Sunday, and all these things that don't make any sense. And it was by the time we were like in the middle of it, it was so much fun, so crazy, and I felt, and this is like my own thing. I felt like I kind of snapped back into my like normal, regular, a little more confident self. And the script was so funny. She was great. You were acting. You were
Thanks.
great. You were like, I mean, you did so many takes, and it was when the sketch comes out, you'll see what we're talking about. That you were so like intense and funny, and you did it every single
Oh,
time.
same with you. You
Yeah.
were great. We were watching the footage, and every take you did was so funny. Very consistent.
Was I fat?
No.
That's the most important thing. It's the sketch is called "Jason is not fat." I hope is by the end of it. No, but it's an example for me where I was like forcing myself to kind of break out of these patterns. And I don't know if people out there ever feel the same thing, but it was you got it was a really I got like even though they're like, oh yeah, you're helping out, and I was like like I felt like the pleasure was all mine because everyone was doing me a favor. Not that it was my therapy or anything like that. It just turned out to be something where I was like, whoa, this is fun. And fortunately, like I said, like Steve was really great. All the pieces were there, and it was super fun.
Yeah, I think the hardest part about making content, a lot of us out there want to make content, but then we have a ton of excuses to not make it. Whether it's the people that we could collaborate with, we don't know if we'll work well together, or everyone wants to be paid and we don't have the resources to pay them. So I think it's always great when you find a group of people who are all enthusiastic about making something and willing to do it for free, which is very rare, but we all have the resources. Phones now are so advanced. So it was nice to actually make something with a group of people.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it was just one of those things that I was like, everything worked. It doesn't always happen, and sometimes maybe something's a little bit off, but it just like you just make it work. You just make things work. I want to kind of go back to where do you come from? Did you say Massachusetts?
No, so I'm actually a unicorn because I'm from Los Angeles.
Oh no!
I know.
Wait, where's your
we're
family
really-
from?
They're also from Los Angeles. Yeah. Well, actually,
Oh boy, here we go.
yeah,
No,
yep.
I'm very interested in this because my wife, she's not from here, but she grew up. A lot of the time she spent was in L.A. So when I ask about what was L.A. like during this time, like she has a lot of like insight into that.
Right.
So you're from L.A.
I'm from LA. Didn't really make my way to Hollywood until after college, though. I started acting when I was like 18 years old. I gave my parents an ultimatum. They could either help me or exit my life, and they were like, okay, we'll help you.
So it was like you either help me become an actor or they can exit your life. That sounds like a pretty like.
They were not very supportive at the beginning because it's obviously a really tough career at the whim of everyone else. You walk into a room and you have 10 people deciding your fate. So they were on board at the beginning because I was 18. I had a
They
few
didn't
years
seem to like that. They didn't seem to have a choice. Were you living with them at the time?
I was, yeah.
So what were you gonna do? Were you gonna just like draw a line?
Yeah, I think I was just being dramatic,
Yeah.
one of those teenage phases. But they were on board and helped me by driving me to auditions because I hate parking in Hollywood. And I ended up booking a big national commercial my third audition. So my dad was like, all right, maybe this girl has some potential. We'll see. I'll let her keep going. So I'm really lucky. I think having a support system makes it way easier here. But I realized quickly that just auditioning for things and waiting for auditions is not the way to succeed. So that's how I got involved in the digital space.
What were you? Because there's people that especially maybe if you live in Los Angeles, like what did you want to do up until you were like, right before you became 18?
I always wanted to act. I was just doing it in high school productions and little sketches with my friends, but never anything professional until I turned 18. And my parents finally were like, okay, we'll support you. Not even financially support, just being encouraging.
Yeah. Not shaking their head like,
Yeah, you're
this
screwed.
one's not going to make it.
Right.
So, but that was always your, you didn't have other, like, you didn't want to be like a veterinarian or something like
No, I always wanted to be an actor. I was neurotic in high school about grades, regardless, just so I had something to fall back on. But actor was always a plan.
And okay, so you booked your third commercial. So you're probably thinking like, oh, this is how it is. Now, from there, was it like, were you booking stuff every 3 auditions?
No, then it was up and down. I think a lot of people have this misconception that you're going to get an agent and then audition every day and then start booking things immediately. I had 3 auditions very sporadically, and the third one I got lucky, booked it, and then after that it was up and down. I ended up booking a series that never came out, never shot, and then I ended up getting a new agent who didn't send me out. So, and then I ended up going to college and studying theater and taking a break from professional acting, as they say, and just trying to fine tune my craft.
Where'd you go to college?
Chapman University.
Yeah, a lot of I make a lot of movies with my friends. We used to do a channel called his channel is Michael Totally Sketch.
Okay, cool.
And his now fiance, her name's Jana, who's really great. She went to Chapman, and she seems to like. And we just shot this movie, and there was all these people from, I think they were from Chapman, like working on it. So there's like a big Chapman industry type thing out there, like a mafia maybe.
They're taking over. Their film school is great. Theater program, debatable, but I got a lot out of the film school.
That's Orange County.
Orange County, right?
Yeah. And then so you're in. Did you graduate from college?
I did. I'm very shocked that I did too, because in high school I was straight A student, and in college I realized quickly that being a theater major doesn't mean being an actor, and I wanted to figure out how to market myself so that I could get in the door. So I thought maybe another way in would be to learn some production skills. So I started doing internships in LA, which conflicted with my classes. And then I started getting more actively involved in the film school. And there was an issue with doing film stuff and theater stuff at the same time. So my grades started slipping quite a bit. But I think doing the film internships really helped me understand how to act better than just being in an acting class, because you start to realize, all right, you're having a close-up in this shot, and where's the lighting going to hit you? How should I stand? So that's been...
You're kind of learning on the fly almost.
Right.
In a practical way.
Exactly. And the theater program wasn't as supportive of me doing that. So I sort of let myself slide by college with mediocre grades, and I think the head of my department was just as shocked as I was when I walked across the stage and got my diploma.
And so did you have a plan, like, okay, well, I graduate, I made that, now what's next?
I didn't know what I was going to do after college. I sort of graduated, and I had a lot of social media experience through internships. So I interned at Conan, Warner Brothers, Relativity Media, doing a lot of like talent and social media work. So my plan was to...
Did you ever do anything? How long did you work with Relativity?
I still work with them on and off. Yeah. They started a film school, and
I spoke at one of those.
Yeah.
So that's. I mean, I've done a lot. I mean, I know somebody who was there and later, worked in management. But,
oh, cool.
Do you recall a web series called Interns?
Yes, with Peter Gilroy.
Yes, I'm in one of those.
Oh, okay, cool.
That was. Were you there then during that time?
Yeah. So actually, during that time was when I first started interning at Relativity. And funny enough, the Ryan Kavanaugh, who's the head of Relativity Media, his first assistant was a little worried that the series Interns would be a reflection of how Relativity runs their office, but they ended up letting it go through, and it's really funny. So
we were like they were Peter and Jacob maybe.
Yeah,
were
Jacob.
Like smashing things. Of course, I played like a corporate guy who was just like, guys, you got to get this done. And
yeah.
Then it was on like the Lexus video like
Right. It
player.
was very interesting.
Lexus the car, and I was just like, why? But I guess everyone needs a video platform.
Yeah. I don't know if it was put out as much as I thought it would be. I ended up searching and saw it on the Lexus platform, but it's funny.
Yeah, no, it was really good. And my friend Michael Gallagher did done YouTube with it for years. I think he directed some of them or all
Oh,
of them.
cool.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that's when I first started working there
Yeah.
as an intern, and then sort of after college, kept my connections. And that at the same time as I was interning, they were just talking about doing a school, and I thought it sounded really cool. And having gone to a theater slash film school, I had a lot of issues with my college, and it was awesome to sort of be in those intro meetings about this new college to sort of give them my personal take on what I think should and should not be done in a college setting. And then they ended up hiring me to run Relativity School's social media platforms. But I quickly realized I'm not a 9 to 5 person and ended up teaching social media courses instead.
So what was your because you are really savvy. I mean, Snapchat's like a huge platform for you. We'll
Yeah.
talk about that. We'll get into that. Did you pick specific things, or was it just social media in general?
It was I used to joke around and say like I'm gonna make a career out of social media, and then I thought it was so easy, and then I started doing these internships and realizing, oh, it's so strategic. There's so much work that goes into building a brand and taking on different characters online. And I thought my theater training sort of helped me take on these different characters. So really, it started off with just copywriting, taking on different brand and celebrity accounts like Ashley Tisdale or Dogswell, and figuring out how to portray them online so that no one knows they have someone writing for them.
Exactly. Yeah, because a lot of stuff is it's handled by somebody or like somewhat ghostwritten in a way.
Right. And I think social media now too plays into someone getting hired on for a second season on a TV show. So being on the business side of that sort of helped me learn how to then take it into my own hands once luck met opportunity for me.
And so, are you still working with the school, or is that
On occasion. So they sometimes have me come in and teach workshops or college classes to freshmen and sophomores on branding and digital platforms and how to monetize things. And
that's the question, right? How to
right,
monetize things.
exactly. That's always on my mind.
That's on everybody's mind. I think probably a lot of people just show up to the ones like, how do I monetize? And they're just sitting there going, okay, how?
Yeah.
Is like probably the big one. Do you feel like, so you're like a not an early adopter, but you adopted it kind of like, were you like, this is important? Whereas like a lot of people in acting, like I've talked to people, and they're actors, and they'll have a Twitter and they'll
Yeah.
have but they're just like, well, my work should speak for itself, and it should, but sometimes opportunities happen because you already have an audience and you're not starting from zero with them.
Right. Yeah, I initially hated social media. I was anti everything, and I had a professor in college in a marketing class who said, you need to create a Twitter or you're going to fail my class. So I did it. And I started losing roles to people who had bigger followings than me. And I'd see them on TV, and some of them didn't have theatrical training, and that really upset me. So I figured, if you can't beat them, join them. So I started getting involved in social media. And at first, my posts, if you go back in my history, they're terrible. But I think it all revolves around starting to figure out what your brand is.
It's terrible to you though, but you don't know the perception of what somebody
Yeah,
else
that's true.
thinks. As I think that too, it's like you see that and you're like, somebody is looking at that, not thinking, oh, this is when she was terrible. They only know is like, oh, this is just you talking about this then, and I think that's like the perception of you is may or may not be different than your perception. Like you might put out
yeah.
something and be like, you know what? Like if it's a branded thing sometimes.
Mhm.
I mean, listen, you want to be authentic, but there's been times, and I'm not saying you, and I'm definitely not saying me, that you've put out something that's branded and you're not 100% enthusiastic about it.
Right.
But you do your best to make it the most you it possibly can be, while also kind of selling that thing.
Right. And that's the hard part because everyone knows it's branded and nobody wants to, like I said earlier, have something sold to them. But that's the way we make money. And keeping up the original content, you got to have some branded support.
Have you ever leveraged your social media for like in the it's all acting world, and anything in the acting world, maybe not for like a branded thing for like what are the ones that say like not that you did like those like flat tummy tea. That's always the big one.
They reached out to me and I
Me
said
too.
no.
And I was like, what? Me? I'm the before pictures maybe I can do or something like that. I was like, but they reach out to it. That just seems to be one that a lot of people do. But have you ever had your social media leveraged for an acting role, no matter where?
Yeah, I think my manager has used that quite a bit to try and get me in the door for different things, and it's been helpful. I used to go audition for one-liners or one words, and it's just an insane cattle call when there are like 50 people in the waiting room to say hey. But this past year, I got in the door for a really awesome guest star role on an ABC show that I probably wouldn't have gotten in the door for unless my manager had used my following to get me in the door. And didn't end up booking it, but ended up getting far in the process and meeting with the creator of the show. And
that's a lot farther than, I mean, the majority of people get.
Right. Even just getting an audition, I think, is a pat on the back nowadays because so many people are submitting for one role and they can only bring in a handful. So, yeah, hopefully at some point the stars will align. I think sometimes, though, it can also hurt me when it'll get me in the door and then I'll make it to a creator producer session. They'll look online and the first video that pops up is Girls Poop for the First Time, which is a parody BuzzFeed video. And when I am auditioning for a very serious role, it can be a double-edged sword.
Yeah, if it was like for the 5th time, they might be like, okay, well, it's the 5th time. It's not as bad as the first
exactly.
time. Yeah, so you pop up in a lot of BuzzFeed videos, and if you're familiar, if you're wondering like what's a BuzzFeed video, chances are if you're out there and you're listening, you've seen one.
Yeah.
You can't avoid them because BuzzFeed's so good at saturating Facebook and YouTube and so on with video.
It's insane. They've mastered the Facebook algorithm. I actually unfollowed one of the tasty pages because the food videos just make me eat constantly, and they're still just all over my Facebook newsfeed. And people think that it's owned by somebody else that isn't BuzzFeed.
And they're like, hey, why are you stealing this video? Tasty.
Exactly.
Or, like you said, like SOML.
Yeah, the SOML is part of BuzzFeed, and BuzzFeed has so many different Facebook pages, and people think that they're just different pages that are stealing BuzzFeed's content when really it's BuzzFeed owns the page.
I guess, it's BuzzFeed is purposely making it seem like we're a separate thing because people might think it's like, oh, this is like BuzzFeed 3 now. Well, I've already seen BuzzFeed 1, so I don't need this page.
Yeah,
very smart.
Very smart.
So what are some of the other BuzzFeed videos that you've been in? You can choose whichever one you want to choose.
I'll tell you the one that gave me a bit of a Snapchat following is I recorded my boyfriend sleep talking on Snapchat, and then we did a video, couples tell each other a secret, and I thought my boyfriend's secret was way worse than mine, but it seemed like the audience really loved the fact that I was recording him sleep talking. And
but he didn't know you were recording him?
He didn't know. He's very anti-social media. Recently, he's been on board for Instagram, but he never...
thank you, Steve. Thank you for blessing us with your presence on Instagram.
Exactly. No, he used to hate Snapchat, so he wasn't even on it. So I would just film...
And he wouldn't know. That's what I was wondering. Like, he wasn't aware.
He had no idea. So I would just record him sleep talking and send it to our friends, and they thought it was amazing because it's hilarious watching him do the craziest things. He would even sit up in his sleep and like make a film camera thing with his hands and start talking really fast and incoherently. So I was like, I'm gonna keep.
That's both
recording
obnoxious and also scary.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, it was very weird. And so that was in the first video, and then they did a follow-up video of just me and Steve talking about that and having him watch himself sleep talking on
like
my phone.
a reaction type
right,
thing, yeah.
Reaction video. And they included my Snapchat name in that, and my Snapchat just blew up after that video. And it's since taken a little bit of a nosedive, but I think the whole platform might be.
Well, yeah, that's what I was wondering. Like, you maybe kind of mentioned, and it's the thing is Snapchat. I feel like was an amazing idea. What's interesting is my father. He doesn't Snapchat, but he he like day trades in the stock market, and he owns a lot of Facebook. And he says, I asked him about stock and Snapchat, and he's like, Snapchat isn't pivoting like the way Facebook does.
Right.
So it's for even on like a business end, for my father who's like pretty out of touch, not out of touch, but he's out of touch with like like social media and the ins and outs of it. But he even knows that Snapchat, like there's not real growth, and like Instagram and a bunch of other platforms is like, well, people are already coming to Instagram anyway. Nobody's like doing Snapchat or Instagram, so
Right.
why don't we just have it? And then if you're verified, you can link out, and it has all the features, and it's like kind of a one-stop kind of shop for it.
Mhm.
So are you just you're trying to push your people,
Yeah, over to Instagram.
which you
I'm
probably should have been doing slowly
Yeah.
previous, and you probably, if you would have known like a year ago, whatever, 6 months ago, maybe not as aggressively, but maybe once
Yeah.
in a while,
Oh yeah, I'm definitely trying to push them over there, especially because Vine died and any of these platforms could fall at any minute, but Instagram just stole Snapchat's platform. So I think people are going to use Instagram more than Snapchat, especially because you can actually search for people on Instagram very easily, whereas Snapchat, it's more of a process to find people.
it's not super intuitive. And I think what I remember about Snapchat, it was like, oh, you have Snapchat if you like kind of want to like send something and you want it to disappear,
Right.
But they changed that thing too, where it's like, oh, you can save it and screen grab it and send it and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So the stigma it maybe had like a couple of years ago, that it was like, I remember like telling my now wife, I was like, oh yeah, I think I'm gonna like do a Snapchat. It goes, so she's like, what? Why? She's not jealous or accusatory, but she's like, Snapchat is just for that. And I was just like, no, it's changed. It's not just to be like freaky. Although I made the joke to you that I knew that I was becoming less popular because the amount of dick pics I was getting, the penises were smaller and they were more infrequent. And I was like, oh, that's how I know that I'm not as relevant anymore. Well, I gotta imagine that you can't not get dick pics.
Yeah, I get an influx. It used to be not at all. I don't know what's happened. The platform's definitely gotten more sexual. At least on my end, I get so many dick photos. It's
Yeah.
insane. I'll be in a public place
Oh
opening
yeah,
night.
you just
Oh, it's the
can't.
worst.
And that's the only, like, the ones when you get like somebody just like, hey, hope you're having a great day. That's when you're at home in the dark. But when you're
Right.
out at like Starbucks, you're like, what's going on? Oh, hi,
Yeah.
friend. Nope, it's a maybe that's a, I think it's a penis. I don't know
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah, some of them not so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep it in your pants.
Yeah. There no anyone who's listening is probably not going to do that. They're going to keep it out of their pants. No, people that are listening, they'll definitely keep it in their pants.
Yeah.
So BuzzFeed for you, though, unfortunately, like we talked about, like having one platform push to another, like BuzzFeed, unfortunately, it's more kind of like brand awareness of your face, not so much like pushing, being like, hey, check out Jennifer on,
Yeah.
YouTube or another Instagram or
Right.
whatever.
Most people who you see on BuzzFeed work at BuzzFeed. It's very insular. So if you're a filmmaker, you're also going to be on camera and you're going to produce a video too. But I'm lucky. What happened with me is that I interned at Conan, and one of my friends from Conan went to work at BuzzFeed. And my boyfriend was working at Relativity School at the time, and he wasn't loving his job. So I encouraged him to quit so I could take his job, and then I connected him with my friend from Conan to try and refer him for a position at BuzzFeed. So it all worked out because he ended up working at BuzzFeed. I took his old job, and then I reminded him very regularly that I helped him get in the door at BuzzFeed.
It's like I made you and I can destroy you.
Yeah, but actually, most of the videos I've been in have been with other producers. But it's cool to have these connections there. So when I write something or have an idea, I can pitch it to someone, and they may or may not use it. But if they do use it, they'll put me in the video. So another popular one I was in was tattoo prank video, where I pranked my mom with a fake tattoo. That was one that my boyfriend and I just thought of over dinner. We're like, that could just be so funny. Let's make my mom have a slight heart attack and
Yeah.
make this video.
What was the tattoo of?
It was, oh man, I don't even remember. Some weird flower on my lower back is a tramp
Because
stamp.
so because if you make it too crazy, like if you make it like, like 10 dragons, it's like, all right, it's like your mom might be like, I don't know if you really do that. But if you
Yeah.
make it something that like it's possible that you'd be stupid enough to do, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
a little more it's a little more believable.
Yeah, her reaction was priceless. Especially, this didn't make the cut, but there was a portion where Steve, who was shooting it, pretended to stop the footage to put in a new card. And my mom was trying to keep it together because cameras were on her. And then the moment she thought that the cameras were off of her, she went off on me. She's like, "This is why you're sick all the time. You know, you probably caught something from the needle. You got HIV." Just freaked out. It was priceless, and I think that video has millions of views now. So that's the thing about BuzzFeed is your face is seen a few times, and then just get tons and tons of views on every single video. So since I've been in a handful, people just assume I work there now, and I reap the benefit of having that platform, but also being able to work with other companies. Whereas if you work at BuzzFeed, I think it's a little more difficult to work outside.
They keep everything pretty a tight ship.
Right, which I think is pretty standard for most businesses and online companies. But for me, it's been great.
So will people like notice you and be like, "Hey, you're the girl from I Pooped for the First Time"?
They won't point out that video, thank God. But they'll say like, "Oh, hey, it's Jen from BuzzFeed." And I usually, whenever I'm with a group of BuzzFeed people, it's a little weird because they all work there and I kind of don't. But I'll just roll with it. Since, on a freelance basis, I'll get paid from them. So technically freelance, yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of your mom, I met your mom.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how I met your mom. And it's not weird at all. Well, it's not weird for me. Or maybe, well, so we were both in a little film festival thing.
Yeah.
And it was at the Man's Chinese Theater, which is a pretty cool theater, right? Unless, if you've see Hollywood and Highland or people that, a touristy part of Hollywood, like that's the theater.
Right.
So we were both in like a short, I guess you call it like a short film.
Yeah, short film festival.
And so your mom was there.
Yep.
Okay, so there's a couple of things happened that made things awkward, even for me, even though it didn't directly involve me. Okay, I'm going to break this down. First, I'm going to say there was a lot of, most of the shorts were I would say more on like dramatic side, just for the sake of like picking something, a little more on the dramatic side. So first it starts, so there was the one before the one I was in. And I'll tell you the one I was in after I tell you what happens at the one after. And you know the story. We were just talking about this last Saturday, last Sunday. The video ends with a quote from Martin Luther King, right? That's how one ends. And all I was thinking was, please don't let the one I'm in be next. Please let it. And then the next video opens on me getting a blowjob, right? For a sketch called Bro Job that my buddy Ray Chow wrote and directed, and people seemed to like it. It turned out really good. It wasn't as like, it just looked a little bit graphic, but it really wasn't that graphic.
It was
just
hilarious.
In the contrast of the Martin Luther King Jr. quote, that was a little bit stark, and I think it was cool because it was time for a little bit of levity.
Yeah, we needed it.
We needed just like a little thing, and it went really, really great. And it's another thing that I got a little nervous on because I was like, I don't even remember if I actually saw it after we did it. So it was like the first time me seeing it, and I was like, and during that time I was also, still very like kind of reclusive in that sense. So I was like very anxious to just even be out, and I was like, I don't want to see something that I'm in that is just I'm not happy with myself in, or I'm like, or I'm ruining it for everybody else. That's my own thing. So that was great. And then you were in one that you started in one that, and I was wondering during the time because I hadn't met Steve yet, and I was like, wait a minute, I met him I think maybe before, but I was like, wait, did he directed this?
Yeah.
And the what was the short called? Covers, and it's it's like a indie, looks great, super cool. Like that's all the videos. I was like, they were whether I was like into them or not, they all looked really great. I was really impressed by everyone. Yours, but it involves some pretty intense subject matter.
Yeah, it deals with rape culture.
Yeah. So okay. And good. I mean, not good, but good that things are being addressed. But I was like, first I'm thinking, I was like, oh man, like you're kissing some other dude. Not that I have I mean, obviously it's like Hollywood. It was that, and also like I know your mom was there, so that was the thing. And I was like, oh my god, your mom's and then your mom is there when I'm also getting this like fake blowjob. So it was just because I think if my mother, I'd be absolutely, because I don't curse in front of my mother, so I'm like that. So I would be, even though my mom would probably be like, it's what it is. I don't, you know what I mean? Like I'm a grown ass woman. Like I've been, I've been through it all or whatever. But me, I'm just a very kind of neurotic in that sense. So that was a pretty intense
Yeah,
night.
it's always awkward when my mom watches things. She's my biggest fan, like very supportive, but I try and hide things from her, and she finds out anyway. And that was a particular screening where she had already seen this short so many times, and we filmed it at her house as well. But she insisted on coming, somehow found out about it, showed up, loved it, loved yours as well. But yeah, it's still awkward.
Yeah, so that was a very, very interesting night.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask about this. I want to talk about perception of people online. Because okay, I'm gonna so like for example, like I'm one I study like I look at people's online presences and I'm just very curious to how it breaks down or like the differences. I'm just always naturally curious because I do that a lot for work. You know what I mean? I've kind of consulted or whatever I've done in an analytical way or just kind of like a sociological study. So like I'll take your Instagram because I really don't look at like a Snapchat I don't even really
Yeah.
I would just post on there and I don't look at people's Snapchat when I have Instagram stories.
Yeah.
So now I have that which I will look at. So you do a very good job of having an interesting life and good time. Now, I don't know what's going on behind the thing. I only know
Yeah.
myself and maybe, stories from other people. But you are always having a good, fun, interesting time. You're traveling. We were both, you posted a picture from Sketch in London, which is a tea house,
Right.
which I was in a couple of weeks before. So I
Mhm.
feel like we were kind of like in the same place, maybe even within the same month.
Yeah.
I don't know. But then you're in you're in Barcelona and you're at FYF festival.
Yeah.
So it just seems like you're always having such like a charmed time, right?
That's the hardest part. Yeah.
So what is like, and maybe I don't want you can't speak for everybody, but just like some real talk, like what's really going on? Well, obviously even if you have to be having a good time some of the time, you know what I mean? But what's really going on when we're kind of, the collective royal we, like putting ourselves out there?
So I think everyone wants to relate to somebody, and a lot of the people who are on these social media platforms are in high school and studying for exams or in class, and they're probably watching content on their phone or looking at content on their phone. So I think a lot of people like to project that they're having a great time so that whoever's in a classroom can live vicariously through this online presence. So because of BuzzFeed giving me sort of this platform of being this fun, bubbly, sort of quirky girl, I try and project that on my social media platforms when really, like, most of the time I'm just chilling. My life is not as fun as it looks, but I think it's part of the job to keep the content interesting so that an audience member wants to keep watching it. So like on Snapchat, I try and do something exciting at least a couple times a week to just fill it out so whoever's sitting behind their desk on their phone's able to watch something exciting and feel that connection while being in a classroom.
Yeah, so your goal is to kind of, obviously you want to put everyone's putting their like kind of best face forward, their best
Yeah.
foot forward, because really if everyone kind of like, I guess that's maybe what Instagram stories or kind of like, quick, I'm going to Target or something
Yeah.
like that. But the thing is that, sometimes one might put up a photo and at the time they're putting it up, they might not be feeling that they're putting up there.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I think when we look at it, we're like, right now, Jennifer Levinson is having a real, her hair's flowing. She's hanging with their friends. She's hanging with Emily. Shout out to Emily. I see, yeah, and what's necessarily happening at the moment. Because when people are looking at it, they're looking at it in a real time that they're looking at it.
Right.
What might be, like right now, if somebody's looking at you like at FYF Fest, is that one of your recent pictures? But really, they don't know that you're sitting there with boring old me with the microphone, at the time. Or maybe you're even doing something even less interesting than this. Hard to believe, but maybe you might be like, I guess I'll watch some like weird documentary on Netflix, I guess, and eat like Doritos.
Oh, yeah, that's my life. Yeah, I think it's experiential. That's the sort of content that's really successful nowadays. People want to feel like they're with you or a part of something. I know the people that I follow who look like they're having the best time and just really happy with life make me excited to see their content. So I try and curate my content to make it look like I'm really enjoying what I'm doing at the moment, even though, a lot of my day is spent watching really great, weird documentaries on
Right.
Netflix.
Or like I'm going driving to Santa Monica for an audition or
Right.
whatever. You're really kind of figuring it out. Like we're all figuring it out, right?
Yeah, and it's about posting too at a certain time of the day and on a certain schedule. Well, especially, I'm sure you know this on YouTube. If you're posting a series and you post one video on a Monday at 3 p.m. and then you wait a month to post the other one,
Yeah,
then your audience
it's a
won't
losing.
follow.
It's a losing game.
Yeah, so I try and sort of brand myself, especially after being known as the girl who Snapchatted her boyfriend sleep talking. I didn't want to be known that forever. So having sort of an Instagram presence, I've been trying to figure out how to curate my content to make it look like I'm more than just the girl who Snapchats her boyfriend sleep talking. And also going back to brand deals, I know that I want to work with pizza companies and fashion companies. So a lot.
I like
of
how that you
my-
started with pizza companies though. I can
Love pizza.
yeah, of course. I mean, I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Pizza and like Coke Zero.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. What else does
Two
anybody
really
want?
great things for your body.
Yeah.
And I love to travel. So sort of all those things I try and bring into my content. And those are things that have also been addressed in BuzzFeed videos. So it sort of flows together seamlessly. There have been a lot of videos where me being a picky eater or me talking about pizza on BuzzFeed. So people sort of know me as that person who is that way.
You're the pizza girl?
Yeah.
Well, it's, because pizza's like a universal thing where like everybody, like a pizza's like one of those things. But I think not a lot, I think people, it's like they're very passive about it.
Yeah.
And you could possibly be a little more, I don't know, just a little more aggressive with your
Yeah.
pizza-based stuff if that's you. And, just like chugging
Owning
those
it.
Coke Zeros until you get a kidney stone.
Exactly.
Just
which
like
I've
live,
done.
yeah. I mean, just live fast.
Yeah.
I would say like live. You know what I mean? That's not living really that fast. It's like a very like mediocre way to kind of go out.
Yeah,
But
I had
mean,
a solid time.
yeah. But that's see. Here the thing is, you posting like bought another Coke Zero. Step number 2 to kidney stones. That's a real you, but maybe not
Right.
as fun as kind of being in Barcelona on like a cool like brick wall or something like that.
Right, and nobody thinks about how many times we spent taking that photo and how many
Oh,
times
that might be photo. Like you could have taken. Well, I mean, I don't know. You might perfect it in one.
No. But sometimes I'll even put in the caption because I think people know that I have sort of a sly, cunning sense of humor. So sometimes in my caption I'll say, "This photo looks amazing. Thank God Emily spent 10 minutes taking this photo 100 times."
Yeah, I mean that's what you got to do. Our phones are just filled with like, just where your eyes are closed, or
Yeah.
I think there should be a thing where it's like once a week you're like, I'm gonna post a bad one.
Yeah.
Like you get one, it's like Bad Photo Friday or something like
Oh
that.
yeah.
But I
would
think
love
still
that.
feel like your bad photos would still be like pretty cool. I don't know. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
So where can we can we find you on Instagram? We're talking about Instagram so much.
Jen Hearts 247.
Jen Hearts 247. Any
Yeah.
meaning behind the 247?
You know that I just always put 247 because 24 hours.
Seven.
Days and days a
Oh,
week.
okay.
Yeah, it's like a childhood one. That
Yeah.
just stuck around.
It's not a great. Well, I mean, it's a decent branding thing, but probably like Jen Levs would be like a slicker
Yeah,
kind
I
of.
should have gone that route.
Jen Levs is pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
But there's maybe other ones out there.
Yeah, a lot of Jen.
But it's like Jen. We said Jen Hearts.
Jen Hearts.
24. I mean, that's a
247.
good that paints a picture of like, oh,
Yeah.
this girl is like
sweet,
cool and like relatable, and you are. So what's next for you?
What's next for me? I'm always trying to create more content. Even before working with BuzzFeed on things, my boyfriend and I, for fun, would create content all the time. So that's sort of on my mind, just writing and trying to create stuff. It all started with a Blumhouse film contest that we entered just for fun. It was like a short horror 30-second thing for Instagram, and we ended up winning it. And the prize was a $4,000 check to fly to LA and go on a set. And we were in LA, so we're like, hey, let's cash this and go to Italy. And after that, we were like, wait, this is fun. We should just keep creating cool content. And since then, that's just what I've been working on, trying to create more content. And I have some cool brand deals coming up that will take me out of town. So
And you'll be documenting that on
Snapchat.
And is your
Instagram.
Snapchat the same?
Same name, Jen Hearts.
Okay, cool.
247.
So you're keeping it consistent.
Yeah, the
throughout.
only one
Good.
that's different is YouTube, which I need to be more active on. That's Never Everland. YouTube.com/NeverEverland Shorts.
Well, we look forward to seeing that. Maybe Girl Poops for the first time, part 2. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thanks.